you think is going on in Afghanistan now? I know it's a broad question, but give us the overview.
Well, essentially what you're looking at is the collapse of the U.S. will to continue in Afghanistan. I think what people really miss in the whole conversation is that the United States has the power to effect anything. And the Afghans know that. So what's really interesting about living on the ground with people in a country like Afghanistan is that you get to see, when you take away the prism of, political spin and parties and, all the trappings that we have that obscure the truth from us in the U.S., these people, they teach you how to look at things in their most basic form.
Yes, that,
right?
that is so true.
That's what they do,
yes.
And that's how they look at it. So they know, for example, the United States could bomb the Taliban supply lines right now. They're all coming from Pakistan. Everybody knows it. In fact, they're coming right through the Spin Boldak border crossing, one of the early ones that the Taliban took in the beginning of this offensive. They know that the Taliban doesn't exist without Pakistan. Right, and the Pakistani ISI. They know that the United States
ISI funds, being the Pakistani Intelligence Service.
Right. And they know the United States funds the entire defense budget of the Pakistani military and intelligence services. So, for example, you could stop the money. You could stop the remittances of Pakistanis living in the United States. You could put sanctions. You could have visas. The whole... Every time you try to address this issue, the immediate response for 20 years of this war has been, you're advocating for war in Pakistan. No, you're not. What they know is there are many things the United States could do right now to change what has happened and is happening in Afghanistan, and they're not doing it.
Wait, can I just pause? I'm asking a series of dumb questions. Why would the U.S. government be funding the Pakistani military and its intelligence services?
Okay, so that's a fantastic question, and really is one for the U.S. government. But what I can tell you is that when we hear about the bureaucracy that is on Capitol Hill, which are the bureaucrats who survive from administration to administration. This has been their policy. They have pushed through the Bush administration, through Clinton, through Obama, through Trump, and now to Biden, that because Pakistan is a nuclear nation, they are the only country in that region that actually matters. In fact, Joe Biden told Afghan's president, when it was Hamid Karzai was still in power, exactly that. On his listening tour after Obama won, he said to him, we don't care about Afghanistan. And we believe that Pakistan is the most important country in that region, and they always will be. And that was that message never, ever changed. And what you're seeing in Afghanistan today is the results of that policy, because the Taliban leadership is based in Pakistan. I mean,
yes.
The Quetta Shura, the Peshawar Shura, and the Miram Shah Shura. Those are the three leadership councils that cover the entire war for the Taliban in Afghanistan. They are not just in Pakistan. They are in the loving and warm embrace of the ISI, who recruits on their behalf when, who orders Pakistanis in the tribal areas to give up their children to go and fight. They don't have a choice sometimes. And the United States has known this from day one. I mean, this is the staggering part to me, is that when you hear this debate, the intelligence agencies failed to see this. Seriously? Seriously. The NSA is known as the crown jewel of intelligence collection in the world. There isn't a digital signature in existence that they don't collect and store and analyze and have algorithms and everything else to sort through. The idea that they miss this, you know what it takes to do an invasion like this? You have to stage forces. You have to plan. You have to have meetings. You have to have, weapons that are moving in.
I'm looking at our producers. Are you listening to this?
I mean, you have to have deals.
You're making... Keep going.
I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's as ridiculous as believing that Ahmed Chalabi, some Iranian refugee in the U.S., persuaded the U.S. government to go to war. I mean, that's literally our narrative on the Iraq war. Seriously? Yes. I mean, we get so caught up in the weeds of this. What they want you to believe is that Afghanistan is complicated. Because if you complicate it, it's a tactic in information warfare called ambiguity increasing. So now we're all talking about the corruption and the this and the that, and there's all these complex parts. But at its heart, every single thing in the world, in your personal life, professionally, on the global stage, at its heart, it's very simple. It always comes down to one thing. One or two things. And in this case, in Afghanistan, this comes down to the fact that the United States wants this outcome. Whoever is in power right now whoever's really pulling the strings, and I don't know that, they could do anything they want to change this, and they're not. And you see that on the southern border. You see that with critical race theory. You see that with the violations of big tech. You see it with, I mean, in 1,000 different ways, you see it all around you. And what you know from that...
You're telling the truth right now. I can just feel, I mean, you know, sometimes when you're listening to someone unveil an insight and you haven't tested it against anything, but you just know it's right, what you're saying is right.
It's very simple. You know, you can have a marriage and, you know, be thinking, should I stay with my wife, should I leave her? It can be very complicated. But in the end, it'll come down to one critical, defining, major thing. And everything else flows from that. And that's exactly where we're at in Afghanistan. The United States government could change this even today, and they don't do it. They don't use the leverage they have with Pakistan. They'll give you 5,000 reasons, but it doesn't matter. They don't tell you the national security threat posed by letting the cartels come across the southern border, do they? They only have a conversation about one thing, the humanitarian aspect. They never address that. Well, they're not addressing right now. You know what they're not addressing? All of the Al-Qaeda and other Islamic terrorist literature and communications that they're picking up that are celebrating this as a massive defeat. They're not talking about why the Taliban are dismantling advanced U.S. military equipment and sending it back over the border to Pakistan. And worse, they're not stopping it. Why? We are, the NSA and the National Geospatial Agency, which controls the satellites, and all of these other arms of the United States government are watching this happen in real time. They are seeing advanced U.S. military equipment going over the border into Iran and going into Pakistan, and they're doing nothing to stop it. Why not? So what the Afghans will tell you, what they will tell you is that the United States chose this outcome.